This is the second story in Patch's adventures. In this story, Patch rescues the little girl from the lake and also saves a baby from a rat. Patch was very happy. He ran round the room, wagging his tail furiously and barking. "Be quiet, Patch," said Susan, but in a friendly way. Patch stopped barking and went to the window. He stood with his paws on the window ledge and looked out. He was excited because Jim's sister was visiting. His sister Jean always made a fuss of him and brought him treats. It was over a year since Jean and her husband had visited. Patch saw the car draw into the drive. Tony got out and went round to the door to let Jean out. Jim and Susan opened the front door and went to welcome them. So Patch ran after them, barking a cheerful welcome. Jean always bent down and ruffled his fur with a cheerful "Hello, Patch," but this time she didn't. She was carrying a bundle of clothes in her arms, and instead of her usual hello, she said, "Get down, Patch, get down." Patch could not understand this. Had he done something wrong? Was Jean angry with him? It was very confusing for Patch, and Jim said, "Come on, Patch, let's go into the house." Everybody went into the house, and Patch was even more confused when Jim and Susan seemed to make a fuss of the bundle of clothes. Then Tony went back to the car and brought in a cot. Now Patch understood. It wasn't a bundle of clothes, it was a baby. This was even more exciting. Patch loved children. Jenny next door always played with him and took him for walks. This was a bit different though, as this baby couldn't walk. He went over to the cot to get a closer look at the baby. But Jean said, "Don't go near the baby, Patch, keep away." He didn't understand, but went to his basket. No one seemed interested in him. They were all too busy fussing around the baby. A few minutes later, Jim came over to him. He stroked Patch's head and said, "Don't worry, Patch, we haven't forgotten you." This cheered Patch up, and he snuggled down in his blanket and went to sleep. The next day, Jenny came round to the house. She went to see the baby and made funny noises at him. Patch had discovered that the baby was a boy. Jenny had not forgotten Patch though and said, "Come on, Patch, let's go for a walk." He jumped out of his basket and went to get his lead. Jenny fastened the lead to his collar and they went out to the park. They always had fun in the park, playing ball and chasing around. Patch liked to chase the squirrels, although he knew they were always too fast for him. They were playing near to the lake when they heard a cry. "Help! Please help me! My little girl has fallen into the lake and I can't swim." Patch saw a little girl in the water. She was thrashing her arms about and crying for Mum. Straight away Patch leapt into the water. He swam quickly to the girl and clamped his teeth around the collar of her coat. Then he swam towards the shore of the lake, pulling the little girl with him. Strong arms grabbed the girl and pulled her ashore. Patch scrambled onto the shore and shook off the water from his fur. The girl's mother cuddled her daughter and then came up to Patch and said, "You are a wonderful dog. You saved my little girl. You are a hero." Quite a few people had rushed to the lake to see what was happening, and many of them came and patted Patch, said things like, "Good dog, well done." Patch felt very proud and was very glad that he had been able to save the little girl. When they got back to his home, Jenny rushed into the room and shouted excitedly, "Patch is a hero! He saved the little girl's life!" Jenny described how Patch had leapt into the lake and pulled the girl to the shore. Everyone made a fuss of Patch, and even Jean told him what a good dog he was. The next day, Jim was reading the daily newspaper. "Look at this," he exclaimed. Patch is in the news. It says, "Hero dog saves girl," and tells how Patch jumped into the lake and pulled little girl to safety. He rubbed Patch's head. "Well done, Patch," he said. Later that day, Jim, Susan, Jean and Tony were all in the garden, sat under the shade and talking about a holiday they had all been on together. Patch was lying down in his basket in the kitchen, and the baby was asleep in his cot in the living room. Suddenly, Patch thought he saw a movement near to the back wall. He sat up and listened carefully. There was a scuffling noise, then Patch saw it. It was a rat, and it ran into the living room. "The rat's going to hurt the baby. I must save him," thought Patch, and he jumped up and ran after the rat. There was a furious chase all around the room as Patch ran after the rat. A chair was knocked over, then a table, and then the cot was toppled and nearly threw the baby out. Luckily, it fell at an angle against the wall, so the baby was safe. All the noise woke the baby up and he started to cry loudly. Patch chased the rat behind a chair and finally caught it. He held the rat tightly between his teeth and shook it until it fell to the floor, dead. The others had all heard the commotion and the baby screaming and rushed into the room to find what was happening. Patch came out from behind the chair feeling very proud of himself. He'd saved the baby. Jean cried out, "Oh, my baby," and rushed to the cot to pick him up. Then she turned to Patch and said, "You naughty dog, Patch, what have you done?" Jim took him by the collar and led him out of the room. "Stay here, Patch," he commanded. Patch was very confused. Why was everyone angry with him when he had saved the baby? Then he realised that they thought he had been trying to hurt the baby. Jean said to Jim, "I knew Patch was jealous of the baby, but I never thought he would hurt him." Jim started to clear up the mess in the room, and when he moved the chair, he saw the dead rat. "Wait," he said, "look at this." He held up the dead rat by its tail to show them. Patch wasn't trying to hurt the baby, he was saving him from this rat. After this, everything seemed to happen at once. Jim went into Patch, stroked him gently on his head and said, "You're a good boy, Patch. I found the rat you killed. Come on back into the room." When he entered the room, Jean came up to him and bent down. She put her arms round him and said, "Patch, I'm sorry I thought you had hurt the baby, and thank you so much for saving him from that nasty rat. I guess I've been ignoring you since I came, but I promise I won't anymore. You're my hero." Everyone made a fuss of Patch, and he thought, it's really nice to be a hero. The end.